G'day, ZiggyD here, back with some more Diablo 3. In the patch 2.1.0, we get the new Hellfire Amulet, and yesterday I was able to jump onto the PTR and actually do the Ubers and farm up the Hellfire Amulet, the new amulet slot. Now, whereas the Hellfire Ring is pretty average. It's basically intended to be a leveling item. Basically, you craft the Hellfire Ring and you're able to power level characters very, very easily since it has no level requirement and gives you a bunch of extra XP and stuff like that, and a pretty powerful proc which absolutely obliterates things while leveling. Now, the Hellfire Amulet itself also has no level requirement, but it's definitely not intended to be a leveling item. You can use it for leveling, but this is an endgame, potentially best in slot item for a lot of characters, for a lot of builds. So you can see on screen here the one that I crafted. This was just after one shot of doing it. I basically did something like 6 or 7 Ubers and managed to get together the parts to be able to craft this fella. And I rolled only okay-ish on the actual primary stats. You can see there's up to 4 primary stats there and 2 secondary stats, and one of the secondary stats is a random passive from your class. This is what makes this thing amazing. So I got single out. That's not very impressive, but depending on your build, there's a lot of potential here. You can essentially rock 5 passives. I'm sure there's many of times where you've seen, oh man, I can take 4 of these passives, but which one do I side out of these 2? You know, both of these passives are really powerful for my build. It's pretty hard to make a decision between them, and you kind of have to just go with the one you think's a bit better. Well, with the Hellfire Amulet, you can now take that additional passive. That's going to open up some extra builds, potentially, and allow you just to be able to move one of your passives onto your amulet here, and maybe just rock an extra damage passive or an extra defensive passive or something like that. So, very potentially powerful. For the Demon Hunter, you could imagine something like getting Night Stalker on your amulet would be fantastic. Like, that's like a very powerful affix to have on your amulet. Passives in this game are very powerful, generally speaking, much more powerful than you would get as a proc on a singular item, so getting this on a legendary item now is obviously super powerful. Now, it is going to be very difficult to craft these guys. In the current instance of the game, it involves doing exactly the same thing you do to craft the Hellfire Ring. In fact, it even uses the same legendary material. So basically, you go farm the Key Wardens for keys, you go craft some machines, and then you go farm the Ubers. And even on T6, there's like, it seems to be like a fairly random chance of them dropping. I don't know what the actual percents are, but it feels like 50% or something like that. But so maybe you run like, 6, 7, 8 Ubers, and then you get enough pieces to craft one of these Hellfire Amulets. Now, the Ubers themselves aren't too difficult at this point in the game. Like, I was able to jump on and do T6 Ubers pretty easily, even though my character only really does like T3 to T4 riffs. Ubers are fairly easy, especially if you rock a pretty good party, and you're usually going to be doing Ubers in a party. So that's pretty easy. But actually getting the Hellfire Amulet is going to take, a good Hellfire Amulet is going to take some work. Now, the primary stats, from what I've seen so far, are completely random. Now, legendaries in D3 generally have some preset things, like, for example, it always rolls with a socket, or it always rolls with, dexterity main stat, or it always rolls with crit chance or crit damage or something like that. They usually have some sort of guaranteed stats, and you can kind of work around those, and that often dictates how generally good an item is. Like, it's pretty hard to roll something out of that. But Hellfire Amulet, it seems to be entirely random. Like, all the ones I've seen so far have been entirely different. And this means that getting the good set of primary stats is going to be tricky. If you want something like fire damage, dexterity, and then crit chance, crit damage, that might be difficult to get. As you can see on my amulet, I managed to get fire damage, dexterity, vitality, and I was able to reroll something into crit chance. But because I didn't already have some crit damage, I only get the crit chance. I don't get the crit chance and crit damage, making it a subpar amulet in terms of primary stats. So it's going to take a lot of attempts to be able to craft one with good primary stats. That's not necessarily a bad thing, I don't think. Now, the secondary stat is a randomized passive from your class. Now, there's a big pool of passives per class. So getting not only the right primary stats, so getting your trifecta amulet or whatever you're trying to get, trifecta with fire damage or something like that, is going to be difficult, but then getting the right passive that you want for your build is also going to be difficult. It's also going to be interesting to have several different Hellfire Amulets, each with good primary stats for the certain builds, and then with good passives for the certain builds you want to play and switch between. So that's pretty cool. I actually think this is a good thing. You could see that as a bad thing potentially, but there's not many items in the game that are super hard to get a really good version of, and I think with the potential power of this item, having this be something you really have to work at, you really have to hardcore farm Ubers, I think that's a good thing. I don't know, I think that's a pretty good thing for the game. Anyway, I do think this has the potential to be a best in slot item. The fact that you get this from the same Uber organs that you get from the Hellfire ring at this point may not go through, so I just wanted to remind you guys of this, that while it might be a good idea to stock up a bunch of organs or keys or machines or something like that in preparation of the Hellfire Amulet launching in 2.1, they may change it. This is the PTR, don't forget guys, and they may change the actual requirements to craft the Hellfire Amulet. So if you're going to stash up a bunch of organs, be prepared for the potential that you'll only be able to craft the rings with those down the line. But as it stands at the moment, maybe it's not a bad idea to stash up a few. Anyway, I'll leave that decision up to you guys. Anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. That's it for now. I'm ZiggyD, and thanks for watching.